Welcome, my friends, to another little chat. Now, today's chat is about a certain album and a certain artist. And I'll show you the album what I was going to talk about. This is the album we're talking about, and it's called, hold on, oh yeah, there's the name of it, and it's called Dark Horse, and it's actually by George Harrison. One his first, I don't know if it was his first album that he made after he left the Beatles and that. George was married in, no, I was get that right. George was born in 1943. He passed away in 2001 at the age of 58. He did have it was through a knife incident when a burglar came into his home and he got attacked. That was part of why he passed away so early. But going back to his album Dark Horse, we are going to have a look at the album and talk about all the songs about it, because this came out in 1974 and it was one of the early ones that he made, and it started off well. It really brought to the frontier of his writing professional, because when he was in the Beatles, he wrote songs, but they wasn't really, a few was on the Beatles album, but because he was the youngest one, they thought of him as the little brother and that's why a lot of his music wasn't, used by the Beatles, but there was a few songs. So we're looking at this album, and on there are 5 on one side and 4 on the other, and it was one of his first experiments into his solo career, because he had a very successful solo career. This is one of 2 that I am going to talk about George's solo. This is one of his early ones, and his first one was Harbour on Tour. I don't know if that's right. Express. That was side track 1. Shady Simple Sandy. I think that's right. And then you say So Sad. Bye Bye Love. Mayo Love. That's on track 1. Ding Dong Ding Dong. That's first one on track 2. And then you've got Dark Horse, the title track. Far East Man. And then this final track, it is Hey Jada Saba. Oh. And he did have on some of the songs, he did have Ringo play drums. There are quite a few different people that he used who worked on this album and that. And I've just had a listen to it, and it's a very good album. And I was quite impressed with the sound of it, and it sounded really good and that. And on the back, if you can see, I don't know if you can see the tracks and the people who are on it. If the camera can pick it up. And that's all the tracks and the different people on the names and that. And so this was on Unusual, all on Got Something. That's the name of the album, the record company, but it was produced by EMI. I think it was tribute. It's distributed through the EMI catalogue and that. And this is the look of George Harrison and all these songs from it. So you had on the first two tracks, you had Tom Scott, Richard Kellaway on piano, Tom Scott was on horn, Richard Kellaway, I think I don't know if I got his name on piano, John Gillam, I can't pronounce, Guerin on drums, Max Bendness on bass, Robert Ford on guitar, and then you got George on guitar as well. And then it was engineered by Phil Angel McDonald. And then So Sad, you had Ringo and Jim Kellerman on drums, Nick Hockham on piano, Will Weeks on bass, and then you got George on guitar and other things. And then you got track 4, Bye Bye, Riven Ace and Patter and Eric Clapton, and George Harrison on Everything Else. So that's who was on that one. But Man of Love was Billy Preston, because Billy Preston was on the Beatles record, one of the Beatles songs. I think he played piano on one of their songs and that. And excuse me, don't want you to see me. So we had Andy Newmark on drums, William Weeks on bass, Tom Scott on horns, and then George on guitar. And that was side 1. And then on side 2, you had Ringo and Jim Kelly, I don't know, on drums, Gary Wright on piano, Natalie Valman on bass, I don't think I've got the name right, Mick Jones and George on guitar, and Alice Lee and Roy Woodman, if you if you let him, George H, electric guitar, Trevor Scott by ODE, horns, Spirit by Sir Francis Criss, and then on the Dark Horse you had Andy Newmark on drums, Billy Preston on Will Weeks on bass, Billy Preston on electric piano, Chuck Fine, Jim Horn, Tom Scott on flute, I think, Emma Rich on the added can't believe and then you had Robbie Ford and George on guitar, Oliver Aston on Tababaz House. I don't know what that is. I've got that wrong. And then track 3, you had Billy Preston on electric piano, Tom Scott on the horns, Will Weeks bass, Andy Newman on drums, and George on guitar. And on his final song, you had George on guitar, Billy Preston on piano, 7, don't know that name, Will Wicks on bass, Andy Newman on drums, Ellie Richards on woodboard, whatever the instrument that is, and Tom Scott, Jim Horns, and Chuck Finn on flute. And that's the people he used on there. And there's a little bit on there, if you can see at the bottom,
where there's other people. I don't know if who's involved in it, if you can see that, and the names of it. So this is my look of George Harrison's Dark Horse. And if you like George Harrison, he's done quite a lot of things. And this is my first look at one of his albums. And if you enjoy this little chat about George Harrison, one of the famous Beatles that is no longer with us, and you like stuff like I do, and you want to join the channel, you're more than welcome to subscribe to the channel. As I always say, it's your choice. You can only make the decision. And I'll say a fond farewell for now. And whenever you watch this, morning, noon or night, wherever you are, I hope you are safe and well. Take care of your friends and your loved ones and be good to everybody. And I'll catch you on the flip side for more interesting things.